Hey, welcome back to another episode of Off Hours with Bourbon Lens. This is Jake, and today I have the Daily Dram, Brandon Smith, joining us because Brandon does a lot of things in whiskey for Bardstown Bourbon Company, but he has his main page, the Daily Dram, that is huge, worldwide following, and Brandon is known as a man who knows a lot about a lot when it comes to whiskey, but he is a lot more than that behind the scenes, and so we're excited to talk to Brandon a little bit about that life, love, and pursuit of whiskey and what he does outside of that pursuit. So Brandon, thanks for joining Off Hours with the Bourbon Lens.
Excited to join up and talk about life and things outside of whiskey, which seem to be a never-ending conversation in today's world, but good to be on with you, man.
Yeah, man. It's, me and you are good friends. We get to chit chat all the time. And I think what's really cool is your story is unique, right? Like how you started this, innovative way of getting people into whiskey. I would say you're one of the early adopters of utilizing social media to gain influence when it comes to bourbon and whiskey across. And if you have not listened to the episode with Brandon that we have on the main channel, go do that because he talks a little bit about his story and how he gets into whiskey and going to Japan and all of that. And so we're going to leave that part out because you need to go listen to that episode. But for this episode, I want to first start with how does this guy, right, with huge background in sports, which we're going to get into in a minute because I think it's fascinating that people don't know a lot about a lot, especially when it comes to track, and you're a big deal when it comes to that. But how do you go from, hey, I'm this college athlete into, kind of playing in this world of influencers to Kentucky? Like, how does that, what's that time frame that happens from, hey, you graduate and then you end up moving to Kentucky?
Yeah. Well, it's been kind of a crazy ride. I love sports, right? Like sports was and has always been a love for me and something I've always kind of gravitated towards just as, an athlete and you grow up watching sports and, with your boys and playing them and just kind of backyard and in the courtyard or cul-de-sac where I grew up with my neighbors. And just kind of, honestly, didn't even know that I was going to get into sports and be on the journey that I'm on. But I think if you're open to kind of, the adventure that life has for everyone, and you're open to the possibilities of what can be, and you never really know where it's going to take you. So that ride has been kind of crazy for me. Grew up in Southern California on the beach, and love to run at the beach, swim. Never really got into surfing, which kind of throws people off since I'm a Southern California guy. But I always grew up snowboarding, funny enough, and just kind of doing that and still doing active stuff, right? And just throughout the years, did sports at UCLA and won a couple Pac-10 titles as a 4x1 at UCLA, and probably surprised myself by that journey. We ended up being top 8 in the country, All-Americans my senior year in 2010. And quite frankly, I didn't even know I was going to run track. So early on, I kind of found this appreciation to just kind of, just trust in what you're doing and have fun with life. And the rest of it will work itself out.
Yeah. So you have this idea of you're going to go play football, right? And you're going to go play football for a guy who becomes popular sometime right after that. He leaves his Division II post. You were going to actually come out to the East Coast a lot sooner than you are now. And, you have a 180 at the last second as Chip Kelly goes to Oregon to go do his thing. And that leaves you in the open. And so how do you go from that transition of, hey, I'm dead set to go play football for a guy who has this great track record, and then you're now like, oh crap, maybe I can go to UCLA and run track?
Yeah. Speaking of track records, right? So I got recruited by Chip Kelly. He was the offensive coordinator for University of New Hampshire, who was ranked number 2 in 1AA at the time. And funny enough, the new marketing director we brought on at Bardstown, he actually went to UNH. So fun little kind of coincidence there. But I didn't know that I was even going to go to college, right? I just came from, not the greatest background, and had some, some things early on in life that, you kind of fight through. I got lucky. I got offered this full ride scholarship, a couple different offers for football, and getting recruited as a West Coast guy to go on the East Coast, and I had a blast on that recruiting trip. It was a really fun school, probably the most fun I had on any recruiting trip, actually. But about halfway through my senior year, I started running track and getting ready for that season, and I broke a bunch of school records and was the 100-meter CIF champion in the state of California. And, I never in a million years would have thought that. But after that, kind of every school started calling me up and seeing what my availability was, and if I wanted to run track for them and be a part of their organization. And, I just fell into track at UCLA, and it was really hard to pass up that opportunity. So I took the track scholarship. And when I went to UCLA, I kind of fell in love with learning more and deepening my appreciation for the sport. And I kind of got addicted to it. It was just something, it was such a unique thing. And you come from a small town in Ventura, California, about 130,000 people probably. And you go into this school, where you come from, a school where you're kind of, the big fish in the small pond, so to speak, as far as athletics go. And surely you can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And, I think you get to these big schools and you realize, man, these are all the alphas from every school that come to these schools, right? And so I learned early on, like, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter, but you better give it 110%. You better put, both feet in and do it if you're going to do it. And I kind of live by that mantra, and that it's taken me a lot of ways in life. And I lived in LA for 7 years total. Started coaching tennis kids after I graduated from school, and I was very fortunate to coach a kid named TJ Pura. Honestly, got to mentor him and fell in love with the whole coaching aspect, and it was probably six weeks after we started working together, he won a Super Nationals title for tennis, which is a huge accomplishment. It's kind of like like a grand slam for junior tennis players. And after that, I kind of, was like, wow, I guess I can do this too, And so I got into coaching tennis and doing that whole thing. And I coached another kid after that who played at Stanford, team captain there as well. So just kind of I don't know if I got a little lucky, right, to say that I inherited these really talented kids, but they were also willing to put in 110% of effort and work really hard and pursue that goal. And, it was a really fun period in life. I got to travel around. I got to play tennis at the Australian Open grounds in Australia. I got to, just do some really fun things. And then fast forward a few years, I moved to San Diego and picked up a kid down there actually who I coached maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And funny enough, he's now ranked in like the top 50 in the world. He just made it to the third round of the French Open. He'll be playing at the US Open later this year in New York. And, that was just another journey in life that just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. So you kind of, took a whole stab at, athletics. And then, a lot of people just want to get into coaching. Normally they coach the sport they played. But you went and said, I know how to hit a ball with a racket. I'm terrible at tennis. For anyone keeping track at home, like if you put me on a court, I ain't got it. I can not hit a ball over the net to save my life, especially on serve. Serving is the most difficult thing I've ever done in sport. And that includes hitting a golf ball, which I'm not good at either. But serving a ball in a small square at a very fast pace is very difficult.
Well, the good thing is that makes two of us, because I'm not a very good tennis player and I'm definitely not a good golfer. But I love to get out there and do them both. And to be clear, I wasn't their tennis coach, right? I was their fitness and mobility. So I was basically taking things that I learned from track and applying them to their sports. And then fast forward even a few more years after that, when I was in San Diego, I got an opportunity to coach track and field at a Division II college in San Diego, Point Loma Nazarene, and just totally fell in love with the coaching again after stepping away from it for a few years. And again, I think there's just something, you're around the team, and there's something about being in a team environment that I think is kind of fuels you, right? It brings other people into the mix, and not only do you get to kind of mentor and be an example for people, but you develop friendships, you develop relationships, and to me, that's kind of what life's all about. I want to be a good friend. I want to have good relationships. I want to be a good professional. I want to do a good job. And again, comes back to trying to give 100% to whatever you're doing. And I think, those are just fun things that happen in life. And then, the rest is bourbon country. So, it's been pretty crazy, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the line you just said kind of got me thinking of in Sister Act 2, if you want to be somebody and if you want to go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention, right? Because there's a lot of things that could show up right in front of you to take, opportunities. And no, I will not sing that for anyone on this that listens, because I'm an awful singer. That does not make two of us in that category. I've heard some back channel video of you singing, which I know you're decent at, but you hide that from everyone. We'll talk about that for another day, and we'll set up like a bourbon day and go and do karaoke. But to get into this idea, right? Like you grow organically. One of, I thought it was a huge deal when we started like following each other on Instagram. Like that's how I nerded out about that. Like it was a big deal. Like you have experience with worldwide spirits and connections all over that. So as you kind of make this jump, 2 feet in to, this whiskey world while you're doing your job in San Diego and everything, what's that like? What's that trajectory like for you to like say, this is a peripheral thing for me, it's something I like, but it's, at this point it's not a job. So what's that like for you when you think about where you've come, like diving into bourbon and whiskey?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of multifaceted, right? I got into love and whiskey, for just so many different reasons, and again, they'll have to listen to our last podcast to get that information. But I got into it in about 2014. Instagram was starting to blow up, and I had a personal page at the time, but I don't like putting my life all over the place, right? And kind of plastering it in the social world. But I really loved whiskey, and I was like, I'm gonna catalog these whiskeys and just kind of track and I guess catalog my journey of the spirits that I enjoyed, and try to remove this pretentious air from the community. And so I got into posting these whiskeys and doing the the whole Instagram thing, and I met some really cool people along the way. And I think early on there was a fun time in the Instagram world, and I think there's still a lot of it. But the people really early on got into it out of pure passion, and now you kind of see this like evolution where people are understandably wanting to make money and try to turn it into a business, and I can't blame them for that. But really early, the passion was kind of what got me into it. The curiosity to learn and kind of, learn about the whiskeys and learn about all that. But again, like I felt a barrier to entry with whiskey that, man, like all these pretentious like Scotch drinkers, and I don't know anything about these whiskeys, and I don't even feel comfortable going into this room with these guys and talking shop. But, you just kind of learn, and we've all experienced that. I know you have, and we probably will experience a lot more of that over the years. But I got into it, and 2014, end of 2014, probably started really kind of moving it, and it just kind of gained some traction. And I thought at a certain point, like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know what's going to come out of this, but again, just kind of going off of instincts and trusting that, hey, this could be something fun. And I never in a million years would have told you that I'd be working in the whiskey industry now, living in Kentucky, been a judge at San Francisco World Spirits Competition, working for a brand. I mean, it really is a crazy, crazy journey. And I'm thankful for some people along the way. Shout out to my boy Nate Ghana, who's absolutely killing it in the whiskey game right now. He's presenting at Aspen Food and Wine here in a couple weeks. But I remember, a couple of times along the way where we had good chats, and we kind of just hit it off early on as friends, and we've been friends ever since. But, I remember going to him at times and saying, I think I'm over this whole Instagram thing, man. I just don't like it. I don't want to post all the time. I'm kind of just over it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, dude, just keep doing it, man. Like you're one of the good people in the industry, and you're smart. Like something good will come out of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep going at it. And it kind of reminded me of the same thing that I did when I was coaching athletes. Is like, you're going through this, the trials and tribulations, and you might lose North Star on what it is, especially when it's something that, you're doing out of pure fun and passion. It's like, there's not that North Star, like, oh, I want to win the Pac-10 championship. Right. It's like, okay. But with whiskey I was just doing it. And I thought to myself, I'm done with it. I'm going to give it up. And he said, no, just keep going. And fast forward over 7 years, I've been doing this, and again, man, just met so many amazing people. Might not be friends with you without it, but here we are. And now we get on the golf course and look like amateurs and have a great time.
As long as we beat Wadle, it's all good. The moment we lose to John is it's a bad day for us both.
I'm giving the sticks up.
Let's not take that bet, because he'll get on a zinger one day and just crush it, and he'll never be able to replicate it again. But he'll shoot like near par, and you'll be like, "What the F just happened?" But luckily, we got a few years before he figures out his swing. Before that happens,
love the guy.
Oh man, that's what's I think great about the community is, like, we get to meet so many people, and one of my favorite things about you in particular that I think people should know is you're a connector. You don't want to like hoard a friend to yourself. And that sounds so weird, but like, you're the kind of guy that connects people to the next person in what they do. And then you keep your circle tight, which is really cool, because in today's day and age, it's really difficult to get an introduction. And when you have those connections and you're okay with passing those on because or you've vetted that person is not going to, take advantage of that, and you're going to use that opportunity to move forward. I think that's what's really cool. And like, you have it in such an easy way of connecting people to other people. And I just think that's a brilliant, ability that you have that not a lot of people do, because it's sometimes difficult to connect people to other people because you just think you're this middleman all the time. And so that's just a convincing. Apparently I've gone on this rampage where I've just given people compliments all the time. I did it on this latest podcast. I gave one to Scott, and I'm giving you one on your own interview.
I appreciate that, man. I think, with whether it's sports or jobs or anything really, friendships, relationships, professional or personal, you just sometimes, someone opening an opportunity and making a connection for you can mean, so much. And I think that a lot of my journey has been, opened up through introductions and people trusting and probably putting the same faith in me. And I want to return that love and, continue to help us all grow and be the best versions of ourselves, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's super admirable. And like, this is a really hard transition, so I'm just going to make a hard transition. One of the things that I know about you, and that I think people would find interesting is, you do a great job with not just whiskey, but also food. So where did that love and passion for food and curating your own meals, and like, we've talked about this at length and nauseum in person, but where'd that love of food come from? And like, how does that relate to your overall, affinity for whiskey and wine and the industry itself from a beverage perspective?
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of layers to that.
You're like an onion, man. You just got to keep peeling back.
But if I had $1 every time I've been told that, man, I'd have a few bucks. Sometimes good, sometimes not good, but I think it all comes down to flavor and wanting to understand, have a deeper appreciation and a deeper connection to the things that we do, right? So if I'm enjoying a whiskey, I want to know more about it, just out of pure curiosity and interest. So I'm going to do whatever I can to try to get more information and learn about that process. And I always grew up, with my family and cooking meals in the kitchen with my mom's, or I got two families, so my real mom and my stepmom, they both like different kinds of foods, and so I got exposed to a lot of different things kind of growing up. And my stepdad, actually, he's in the ag business, so I always grew up near the fields. He flies helicopters in California, and probably, honestly, he sprays organic pesticides to kind of basically allow the food that we eat to grow. And it's funny because I go to the store here in Kentucky and I see things grown in my hometown, and so I think, again, it comes back to this kind of deeper connection, where I think a lot of the connection that people have in life is lost. They they don't understand where that steak comes from, or they don't understand where the lettuce or the vegetables that they eat comes from. And there's a disconnect. And I think we as a people, we need to have more education around this stuff, and we need to have better information out there for us to be connected to these things. Otherwise, down the road, it's going to be crazy. I watched a documentary recently. Really cool chef that I like. His name's Jamie Oliver from the UK, and he had a show where he was kind of trying to educate these communities on food. And he goes to an elementary school, and these kids, they can't identify a tomato or a potato or a carrot, these like just broccoli, like very simple, straightforward things that I would just assume everyone should know these things. And, that a lot of that is a byproduct of the foods that they eat. Right. So if you eat French fries and you're in school, high school, kindergarten, elementary, whatever school you are, and all you've known is French fries that come out of a bag, right? You might not know that comes from a potato, right? Like, and that's really the moral of that episode in that series that I watched. And so I kind of, like everything, I want to teach about the things I'm passionate about. I want to share information, and I think a lot of that really stems from that. So, the long-winded version of your question is, I just love the whole process from soil to growing to cultivation to harvest to cooking, and just kind of that whole experience is very therapeutic, and there's nothing I enjoy more than kind of cooking a meal and chefing it up and putting some TLC into something that I can share with people.
Yeah, I mean, you had me try Japanese curry. Never thought I would eat that, and it was fire. So I can say that. And he also inspired my newfound garden in my backyard. I got a tomato plant, red pepper, and some herb and some spinach growing. So we'll see if my thumb can turn green. The likelihood is 0, but we'll give it a try.
What kind of herb are you growing?
Not the devil's lettuce. Just straight old,
probably good.
Or as my wife would say, oregano, aka oregano.
We did have a good debate on that at the nursery, so I'm glad. Hopefully, it works out.
Yeah. So we got 2 types of oregano that we're gonna go with, and some time. I'm still on the hunt for cilantro as a seedling. They were all out of seeds, and then I out of your recommendation, I did, instead of buying another pepper, I cut the seeds out of the pepper that I julienned. Yeah, I use a cooking term there
nice.
For fajitas. And, I took the seeds and put it in a paper towel and put some water on it and letting those things sprout up a little bit before they go in the pot with the other red pepper. So you do inspire me a little bit to do different things. So I appreciate that. So one of the things that's really interesting, what I've heard throughout this story is this idea of curiosity and, questioning things and understanding things. So when you think about just like some of the things that, and this could go way off the rails. So when you think about your curiosity, like what's the next big thing that you're trying to figure out in your head, whether it's whiskey related, life related, whatever, what's that next curious step that you have that's kind of in front of you?
Oh boy, man, that is if I knew the answer to that would be the $1 million question for sure. I think again, it all ties down to following the things I'm passionate about, right? I love to learn and teach and work with people and develop people. I love to travel and kind of have that exposure to different cultures and kind of experience all that life has to offer. So I really don't know if there's one thing per se that I really see myself doing, right? And this has kind of been something that I've it's a gift and a curse, right? It's like I've never felt like going through school, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or there's this one thing that I want to be, right? And I think that is something that gives me that curious nature, which has provided me a lot of really cool opportunities to experience different things. I feel like I've had probably 8 careers and I'm 33, soon to be 34. And, I think, who knows? I mean, 10 years later, I might have 10 more careers, right? I want to definitely, have a more developed business in myself and from myself and, have a successful operation that allows me to give jobs and provide opportunities for other people to be successful and live a life they love and do things that they're passionate about as well. So I think at the most fundamental level, that would probably be the best answer I could give you.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. And, as we close this episode out, there's a theme to into this. And it's just this idea of off hours, like living outside of work, living outside of your passions, your hobbies, like whatever those things are. And so I started this with Jake Ireland, who is the founder and CEO of Off Hours. And so I'm gonna ask every guest this question at the very end of every episode. And I don't preface this because I just want to catch people off guard. And if they listen to the previous episodes, well, they get a hint. So the question is, what's your one piece of advice to help people get off hours or off the grid for a little bit to enjoy their passions?
Yeah. Well, we live in a world where there's so much opportunity, right? There's just an abundance of things that you can do, and I think a lot of that, funny enough, is stemmed through something that we are directly affiliated with, right? Social media. I think everyone sees so many things and has so much distraction with the world that we live in, and that can be good if you can foster and harness that. But it can also be a detriment. And at times that has been a detriment to me, thinking about too many things that I want to do instead of focusing kind of all that energy into one thing. So I would encourage people to chase something that they're passionate about, right? And if you don't know what you're really passionate about, sit with your thoughts and look at and analyze your day to day and think, what do you find yourself doing in your free time, right? Like, what do you find yourself enjoying? What brings you happiness? What brings you peace of mind? What brings you kind of, substance, so to speak? And then kind of chase after that. Maybe it's for you in this case, maybe, it's like getting your hands dirty and growing something, which, you might find is something that you enjoy with your wife and your son. For somebody else, it could be going down the whiskey rabbit hole, right? And maybe they get to enjoy that journey, or maybe fitness, right? Whatever it is, and whatever anyone finds themselves doing, just be consistent with it, have fun with it, make it something that's part of their routine, and try to have a goal with it, and be open to the adventure and be open to the journey, because you never know where you're going to find yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And I think more people need to sit down and pursue those passions, because we have a lot of opportunity in front of us, as you mentioned. And I think the biggest opportunity that people have in front of them is to go like and subscribe to this podcast to make sure that they can get that advice. And so as we close up today, guys, make sure you're following Brandon at The Daily Dram on Instagram. Great content. He posts a lot of stories. You may see me on there being very bad at golf from time to time, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Make sure you follow our social medias at Bourbon Lens, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure you're following our sponsor for this episode, which is Off Hours Bourbon at Drink Off Hours. Pretty simple. And we are excited to continue these Off Hours podcasts as we tell the story behind these people that are making whiskey and bourbon and adjacent categories great. And so until next time, cheers.
Cheers, man. Appreciate you guys having me.